Hi, this is Kate from Izzalicious Designs. Today I thought I'd show you how to make my little Deadmouse figure. Now, I have to admit, I had no idea who Deadmouse was, and my husband said he's an extremely popular musician, a Canadian musician, and that everybody else except me would know who he was. So there you go. I just thought it was extremely cute. So this is what we're going to make today. This little dead mouse. Poor little thing. Let's stab him. There we go. Dead mouse. All right. Two colours, nice and easy, red and white. I'm going to start by doing his little arms. Now, I've already done one arm. I'm going to do another arm, and you're going to make two. Then we're going to do his ears. I've made one ear, you're going to make two. And we're going to do his eyes. I've made one eye, and you're going to make two. Actually, let's start with the eye, because that's really easy. All it is a magic ring. Now, you can do your magic ring on your loom, or you can do it with your hook. It really doesn't matter. You are going to need a stitch marker of sorts. Oh, you won't need a needle, that's fine. We don't need that. So a stitch marker would help. You can use the little locking ones, you can use the little open ones, you can use an S clip, a C clip, you can use even, I've had people who use a bobby pin and use that as a stitch marker. All sorts of different things can be used as stitch markers, so have something available. I would recommend, if you're getting into Loomigurumi in a big way, that you do invest in some of these little stitch markers. They are fantastic. Let's do our magic ring. I'm going to do it on my hook to show you, and we're just going to wrap it around once and twice, our single band. Now we're doing a magic ring for the eye of 6. You can tell you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and that's all it is. Whoops, come back here, band. Slide your little end cap on. Now, a way that you can make sure that you always capture that little end cap, the 3 loops if you need to, is to pop your stitch marker through the 3 loops like that. Okay, and that just helps you keep them separate from your little stitches. Let's zoom in a bit closer so you can see what on earth I'm talking about, if my phone will let me. There we go. Here we are. Let's stop the movement so we don't all feel seasick. Okay, do you see how I've just popped that through the little end cap like that? And then all you do, we're going to count 6. So this is number 1. Push it back through. 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So pull through and do your knot. Now, if you are not familiar with how to do Loomigurumi, I would highly recommend having a look at my Loomigurumi tips and tricks guide. There's a playlist actually which will make things a lot easier for you. I also have a beginner's guide to Loomigurumi in that playlist, and that will teach you some of the stitches. It will go through doing them nice and slowly so you don't get overwhelmed or you don't feel rushed, and it will just help so that you're familiar with the terminology that we're using and the type of stitches that we're doing, because it is a little bit different. Not everybody can just pick up a hook and start doing this. Sometimes it takes a bit of practice. So there's our little magic ring. Now all I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the first stitch and I'm going to do a slip stitch. So I'm going to join those 2 together like that and pull into an anchoring band. And I'm going to do the same. If you have a look, I've gone down this way. I'm going to count from here. I'm going to go 1 and 2, and I'm going to put my hook in the next one. So 1, 2, and in the next one I'm going to put my hook through that stitch, and I'm going to do another anchor band just like that, and then I'm going to say 1, 2, and in this one I'm going to do another anchor band. So I've just got 3 little anchor bands for the eye. Okay, I'm just going to use those to position the eye properly when we make the head. Now for the arm, I'm going to get rid of these white bands so they don't get in my way. For the arm, we're going to start with a magic ring of 8. Okay, so that can sound a bit daunting, can't it? Single band, wrap it once and twice. Now count out 8 bands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. It's a bit of a tight squeeze. Alright, so our first one, we're going to take our little end cap and move it over our first one. And this is where I sometimes, if I'm feeling like I want to show you what I'm doing, I just put my little stitch marker through my end cap so that I don't lose. I think that's the hardest thing, showing you what I'm trying to do close up when you're dealing with bands in a close proximity. So you can just use the little stitch marker. Hey, come back here. If you don't need the stitch marker, that's perfectly fine. And once the magic ring starts to get established, you can get rid of it because you really don't need it, because it's sort of already formed there for you. But in that first instance, when you're a beginner at this, you might need it. So we're doing 8. Now spread them around, go through your first stitch, and then with your single band pull it through and put your stitch marker on that. I'm going to just lock it into place. Now we're not doing increases. What we're doing is 8 rounds, all the same, single crochet, so 1 in each stitch, not an increase. If you do an increase, you get 16, and that's going to be too big. So just a single in each stitch. And I am sorry about the scratch on the back of my hand. That's going to be here for a little while, I think. I had a fight with a underwear a fight with an underwear shelf at Target. You know those wire racks that they have those little hooks on, that they hook all the underwear and socks and whatever on. And I spotted a pair of underwear that were in Izzy's size, a packet of them. And they were My Little Pony, so I had to get them. And as I put my hand in to reach to the back of the thing, it had a sharp, jaggedy metal bit on the rack, and it scratched me. And because I'd put my hand in, I had to pull my hand back, so I scratched myself twice. So this is round number 2. Now the other way you can do this, if you're not very good at remembering what round you're on, is always just count out the bands. And I use those sometimes. So like I'm just about to start 3. So I put 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And then I have my separate pile over the other side. And then every time I start a round, I take 1 from here. And then I know that I'm going to be doing 8 rounds. The trick is to remember which pile you're taking your bands out of. Back to my first stitch, so I take 1 from this pile, move my stitch marker, and around we go again. And we're not increasing or decreasing for any of these arms, so you should just have 8 stitches at the time you start and at the time you finish. And I have not used stuffing on these little arms. I think they're so little anyway. I mean, you could, but I kind of think it's a bit of a waste. They don't really need to be stuffed. They hold their shape pretty well. Out a bit. My last round. Now you are going to do 2 of these, if you remember. So you are going to need to pause the video. Oh, that's handy. A bit rough there. Broke that one. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to go through the first stitch, and I'm going to take a single band and do a slip stitch like that, and put my stitch marker on them just to keep them from unraveling. Okay, so that's my little arm, and you're going to do 2 little arms. Okay, let me make sure I've done the right side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I think I'm a row short. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm a row short on this one. I shortchanged myself. So I'll do an extra little round on this. And then we're going to do the ear. Again, you will do 2 ears. I'm going to start with a magic ring of 6. There we are, there's the end of my arms. I'll do a tie-off band, or a little slip stitch. There we go, and pop my stitch marker on that. That's a bit better. Stretch it out. There we go. There's my 2 arms, my 2 eyes. Let's do an ear. So again, take your single band, wrap it once and twice. We're doing 6. So 3 and 6. Take your first one, wrap it over, pinch the little end cap, And as I have said, if you find it easier to use your loom to do the magic ring, please do so. It really doesn't matter. I've had people saying to me, oh, you've said this is a loomless design and you started using your doing a magic ring on a loom. And really that was just to make it a little easier for some people. So they obviously didn't click that you can use the loom or your hook. Alright, we're going to do a round of increase, which is 2 in each stitch. So here's our first one. We need another stitch marker, seeing as I very carefully broke my other one. Here we go, we'll pop that in there, and we will do 2 in each stitch. So that will take us from 6 to 12. Both loops. And now we're going to do a single crochet followed by an increase. So a single crochet, let's see, there we go, change my stitch marker to that stitch, and we'll do a single crochet and an increase. So we're going to end up with 18 stitches. And let's get a few more bands. A single and an increase, single, increase, single, increase, single, increase, single. We finish on an increase. Going to do 2 single crochets followed by an increase. So that's number 1 and 2, and then you do an increase in this stitch. we finish on an increase. Now we're going to do 3 single crochets and an increase. Move your stitch marker. So that's 3, and now we do an increase. Now please remember, you're going to be doing 2 of these. And we will finish on an increase, and we're not going to tie off. Again, we're going to do a slip stitch into that first stitch, pull it through, add your loop, and we're just going to put our stitch marker on those 2 little loops of that band. Okay, same here, we've done the same. Alright, so I have 2 ears, 2 arms and 2 eyes. So once you all have that, we will get started on our head and our body. Okay, so it's time to start the head, and we're going to start by doing a magic ring with 6. So wrap your band twice around your hook so you have 3 little loops. Let's get 6 bands ready, and off we go. We are going to need another stitch marker. Again, you can just pop your stitch marker through like this if you need to keep the little end cap open, if you find that easier. If you don't need that, just pinch it with your nails and pull your bands through like so, and we're doing 6. Oops, come back here you. Now we're going to do an entire round of increase, which will take us to 12. Put your stitch marker on that first one. Probably need to zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Let's do that now and make sure we're in focus. So we're doing an increase, which is 2 stitches, 2 single crochets in each stitch. Now we're going to do a single crochet followed by an increase. Move your stitch marker and let's do our increase. This will take us to 18 stitches around. Finish on an increase. Now we're going to do 2 single crochets followed by an increase. So here's our first one. Move your stitch marker. Second one. And an increase. And then we do the same all the way around. And an increase. And we finish on an increase. Go through your first stitch, move your stitch marker. So this is the top of his head, okay? This is the bit that is right here, okay? Now, we're going to do our rounds of single crochet only, and we're going to start by doing 5 rounds of single crochet only. So I'm going to catch you back when we're both at that stage. All right, see you then. So I've done my 5 rounds of single crochet, and what I need to do now is add my eyes and also add where I want my ears to be. So working from the magic ring, you're going to squish it in half. Okay, now I have added 1 eye, and I wanted to make it so that I was an entire row above. So where I see this stitch, I'm going to go about the same spot on the other side, which is about here, okay, and I'm going to add my eye. Now, as you know, we've got the anchor bands, so I'm going to position where I think this should be, and if you have a look, it's about there, so probably about here. And it's up to you. You can add them wherever you like, really. It's just trial and error as to what looks good to you. Now, I've gone above that one here. So I'm trying to do the same this side, and then you put the other anchor bands down. Now the trick with anchor bands is to not put them too far out, because otherwise you see the knot that you had. So try and get it close to the actual body of the eye. So I quite like how that is. Now as you can see, I've got these 3 loops inside. They're too close to just link like that. That's going to go loose, and then your eye will go loose. So what I'm going to do is gently, and I'm going to just take this one out, gently undo my anchor band so I have 2 loops to it. So I'm going through here, and I'm going to grab both of my loops. Okay, I want 2 loops, both sides of my band. All right, there it is, 2 loops, and I'm going to do this for each one. So I'm going to use my stitch marker or another stitch marker or a pencil, something just to hold these in place, and I'm going to go around and do that to all of them, so that I have released the anchor band so that it is in 2 parts like that. So you've got both ends of your band and you're pulling both through like that. Now the trick that we're going to do is 1 pair over the other like that, and then again put your little stitch marker on, and then we'll do this last one here. And I'm going to take it out. I'm going to just gently undo it. I don't want it to come away from my creation, but I do want it to be so that I can grab both ends and pull through. Now again, I'm going to hold, put my hook through the ones that I've already linked in, pop my hook through the 2 new ones, up and over, and all I'm going to do to secure them is just go through some of the inside loops. I'll use a red band, pull that red band through the 2 loops and through the loop of the eyes, and tie off as a tie-off band. It doesn't matter if these are a bit bulgy. They're supposed to sort of be 3D-ish and sticking out. Again, squidge down the center, and you'll find the center because it marries up to where this is at the back, your stitch marker. And this is how we're doing the ears. Okay, I've marked mine already. I've gone from the magic ring, I've gone 1 big gap here, 1 hole, 2 holes, and I've put 1 this side, and then I've done the same on the other side, 1 hole, 2 hole, and I've put the other loop this side. And then you work out roughly where you want. So I've gone a big hole and a band, and this side here a big hole and a band. So that's marking where I want the ears to be. Now to add the ears, one thing you have to be careful of is that you get both sides facing the same way. Okay, you have a side with the little V's, okay, and you have a side that is not the little V's, and I like the side without the little V's to be at the front. So we have our tie-off band here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put my hook through where I want this first side of the ear to go, and I'm going at the top. I could have gone at the bottom of where this tie-off band is, or this marker band I should say. I'm going at the top of it so that it's closer to the magic ring. Okay, and I'm going to use the tie-off band that I have on here as my first band. All right, and I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to pop through the other side, okay, and draw the other side down in. I'm going to get rid of this stitch marker. Now it's tricky, you're sewing these on, so I'm going to do a little stitch like that. Then I'm going to find the next spot to push my hook through. Now you want to try and keep in line with the end, the band here at the end, because if you go over here it's going to be wonky, all right, and we don't want a wonky ear. Go through your next stitch, okay. I'm going to pull it through, and I'm going to take one side down through my creation, and then again I'm going to poke up at a different spot than I've gone down, pull it back through and knot it. I'm going to do the same again. Take my marker band off. I'm going underneath where I want this to be. I'm going to go through my band for the ear, get my red band, pull it through, and I've linked that one in. You didn't have to do it so quickly, but I did. And find another spot and draw back and in. So you sort of looped these along. Okay, and that's how we stitch in the ear. And I've just let go of my end. There we go. Now, to secure it, I'm going to go through a couple of these little V's inside the head and pull through all of them and tie a tie-off band like that. And that is how I attach the ears. Now, yes, they are a bit floppy. They're big. There's not much you can do unless you wire them. And I have to admit, I'm not really somebody that does much wiring. But there we go. So now let's do the other side. Again, you want to make sure that you have the same side facing forward. So I have the V's pointing to the back. So the V's are pointing to the back, which means that this side, if we're coming along this way, I have to start at the bottom here for this one for it to be the same. Alright, so this time I'm going to go in through the bottom part of where that tie-off band is, so furthest away from the magic ring. I'm going to use the tie-off band as we did before. I'm going to pull one side through. Let me just take this off the stitch marker, it's in the way. So let's move that off. I'm going to take one side in my hand and pull one side through, and again lining up with your other white band, pull it through, one over the other. Again, lining up, make sure you keep that little loop on your hook, lining up, but not going through the same hole. If you go through the same hole, you're just going to, it's going to come unraveled. So poke your hook through another spot. I don't want to go too far. There we go. Grab a piece, the next stitch on your ear, a red band, pull through. I'm going to knot those, and then I'm going to find another spot that I can come through to pull my red band in. I don't want to lose what I have on my hook, but I want to come through the middle here. There we are. Put the other end of my band on. This is probably the most fiddly that this design is going to be, sewing the ears on. Keep that loop on, and if you don't want to keep your loop on a hook, use a stitch marker and pop it through. Okay, pop it through, and then all you do, go through your next spot for your next band, which I'm going through here, and I'm going to grab my next stitch on my ear, take my band, pull it through. I've got to come out the other side in a different spot. Again, I don't want to be coming through the same spot, otherwise it's just gonna, well, stitching in the same spot really is a bit silly. One over the other, turn this inside out, maybe that will make it easier to show you. And then we have to link these two in, if I don't lose it. There we go. Go through my other stitch. There we are, like so. And then all you want to do is go through another loop on the underside, on the inside, and do a tie-off band. You're not going to see those, that's all going to get covered in stuffing. Now I can see already that one ear is probably a little further back than the other, and I don't think it's going to matter too much. If you're feeling a bit, you know, that one is further back than the other, you can adjust it. It's completely up to you, but I think that looks okay for me. One is a bit floppier than the other. Again, you can tweak your bands however you want so that they are adjusted. I think that's going to be just fine. So now we need to continue with our little head here, and I'm going to just undo that. This was my last stitch here. This is my first stitch here. So I'm going to go through and do my first stitch in red, and we're going to mark where we want. I'm going to put my stitch marker back on now. This is my first stitch. We're going to mark where we want the mouth to start. Okay, now I have gone a little either side extra for his mouth, so if you want, I would go, this is the first one, I would start the mouth here, and I'm going to put a white band and mark it, because he's got a big cheesy grin. Okay, so you're 1 and a bit, so here we got 1 and a bit, so I'm going to go through this one here, and we'll see if that looks about right. And these are just marker bands, so that looks right to me. That's what we're going to work on. So we've done our first stitch, second stitch, third stitch, fourth, fifth, sixth. Now 7 is going to be normal, and the 8th stitch is where we turn to white. So take your marker off, and this is where we change colour. So come in, slip stitch, so add all the loops to it, and there we go. Now we're changing to white, and you're just doing single crochet until we get to our next marker band. Now the thing to remember is that this band that we have on our hook is going to stretch across to here. So we can take this one out, and using a red band, push through, join, and single crochet. And that is going to incorporate all of that, see, like this. Now if you want the smile bigger, you can do it one bigger either side. It might look actually quite nice, a bit bigger, because he's got a huge cheesy grin. So let's do that. And all you need to do, and I'm just going to show you, is just unpick these, and where we have our last red one, so put that one on your hook, unpick this one and do your change one earlier. So it's very easy. Do your slip stitch, join, and then we just go and loop these up. And I'm not editing this out because I think it's important to see how you can change things just by undoing them a few. So let's undo that one. We're doing a white here to make his cheesy grin cheesier, and now we will swap to red, and let's see how that looks. I'm just going to do another stitch in red quickly. Let's see if that's better. I think that's better. Alright, that's more like how he will be. So if you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is changing to white. So 7, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bands in total are going to be white. Alright, and then we continue. In red until we get to our stitch marker again. going to be my first stitch of my next round. I'm going to change my stitch marker to that stitch. There we go. And around we go until we get to the white portion. And what we're doing is coming one stitch in on either side of the smile to make it that little bit smaller. So on this red one we still do red, and then on this white one, now as you can see we have our slip stitch here. We ignore the little stitch that's at an angle and we go into the white next to it, and we're doing a slip stitch because we're changing to white. Okay, see how that's come in a bit? And then we're doing our next stitches in white. 2. Now we're going to the stitch before, this is our last stitch, so the stitch before our last stitch we're turning to red because this will pull across. So this is our last stitch. We're going into our second last stitch with white, and then in our last stitch we're going to go, our last white stitch, I'm sorry, we'll do our colour change to red, miss the slip stitch here and go into the next red stitch. See how that's come in one, and again we go round till we meet up with our stitch marker. Oops, come back here you. So this is our second round of white or partial white. We're doing 4 rounds with the white. My next round is my first band, my first stitch. Move my stitch marker. And again, here we move around until we get to our white mouth. In through our last red, and again this pulls over, so we go into our first white with a white, pull through and do your slip stitch. See how that pulls through? This is our third round using the white. This is our last stitch in white, so we're going to change to red, pull it through as a slip stitch, skip your little slip stitch in red and move to your next red stitch. here's my first stitch again. I'll go through and move my stitch marker. Around we go. This is our last round using the white for the teeth. So in my last stitch here as red, and then through our first stitch of white, pull through and do our slip stitch. This is our second last of white, so this is our first stitch of our last stitch of white, but our first stitch of red. Do your slip stitch for colour change, miss the next slip stitch and go into your first red, and around we go till we get to our stitch marker again. Now our next round is going to be completely red, no changes, just be aware that you are going to have those slip stitches that you need to ignore, otherwise you end up with added bands, added stitches, and that's not what we're looking for. So an entire round of red. Change my stitch marker, there we go. This is my last stitch with the red. You can see the little slip stitch beside it, which is a little tiny white stitch at an angle. You're going to ignore that and go into the white stitch, and we're still going to use red. We're not swapping colours this time. This is our second last red. Here's our last red. Next to it you have the little red slip stitch that's going at an angle. Again, we're going to ignore that and go into our first red, like so. And let's do red until we get to our stitch marker. First stitch, I'm going to go through, single crochet and change my stitch marker to this. We're now going to start, and there's this little face so far, now we're going to start doing some decreases. Alright? Well, as we started with our increases and we went up to 2 increases and two single crochets and an increase, we're going to do the opposite for decreases. So we're going to do 2 single crochets, followed by a decrease all the way around, and then we're going to do a single crochet followed by a decrease all the way round. So this is my first stitch and this is my second. For my decrease, I'm going to go through the back loop only, like this. And I think it forms less of a knot in the work, so it's a little more obtrusive, which is good. Here we go, another 2 single crochets followed by a decrease. Single, single, and decrease, single, single, and decrease, single, single, and decrease, single, single, and decrease. There we go. And now we're going to go around and do a single and a decrease. So let's do that. There's a single, move our stitch marker, and a decrease. And let's do that all the way around, and I'll catch you back when we have all done that, because otherwise it's going to take forever on this video. So I've done my decreases and I have my little tiny neck hole like this. Now what I'm going to do is, in our next stitch, we're going through the post. Now this is the front and this is the back. So what we're doing, we're going to take our hook, still with this little loop on it, go into this stitch backwards and come out the other one like this. Now if you need a little help with this stitch, there is a tutorial on my playlist of how to work in the front post and in the back post. So this is what we're doing, a single crochet and adding our loop in it. I'm going to take this off and add that to this. Again, let me show you. Instead of going through the stitch like we would normally here, we're going from the back through the stitch and then through the next stitch and up, so you get this little post bit here. Okay, and this is going to change the angle of our work, in through the next one and out. And it will also strengthen our neck a little bit as well. So we're working on the post. Sounds funny, doesn't it? Here we go, a few more bands. All the way around until we get back to our stitch marker. Make sure you just, there we go. And this is our last one. Now we are already in this post, so what we're going to do now, with this still on, we're going to go through the first stitch and do a single crochet and move your stitch marker. And we're going to increase slightly from what we have here. We're not going to do an increase, we're going to do a single crochet followed by an increase. So we did our single crochet, so this second stitch we're going to do an increase, 1 and 2 in the same stitch, followed by a single crochet and an increase. And a single crochet and an increase. And a single crochet and an increase. Single and an increase. Single, and this last stitch is an increase. Gently stretch that out a bit so that it forms its shape. Okay. Now all we're going to be doing now is adding our arms and building our body down. So you want to make sure, and we might have to go back a stitch. Okay, what we want to do is add our arms here so that they are in line with the ear, and you want the middle of the arm to be in line with the ear, which is about here. So I think we're going to have to go back one stitch. I'm going to take my stitch marker off. Okay, I'm going to unpick these last 2 stitches, which were an increase. Okay, I'm going to take those off, and instead I'm going to put my arm here. I'm going to put my hook through the loop that I had the increase on, and instead of adding a band, I'm going to use the band that I tied off with. Okay, and I'm going to have this band as my loop that comes through. I'm going to pinch it with my fingers so I don't lose it. I'm going to take one side, if I can get my hook through it. There we go, one side on my hook, pull it through, grab the other end, do my single crochet and add. Then I'm going through the next, and I'm going to go through 2 little loops this side and 2 little loops on the other side. And I'm not too worried about marrying them up because I've just sort of squidged it down, and we're just going to add it like that. I'm going to pull the next band through and through, reclaim, one over the other and join. And then in my next loop, which is here, my next stitch, I'm going to go again through 2 loops and 2 loops, just so that I've got it. And if you want to make sure, just sort of spread it out a bit to see. So I've got two loops here and 2 loops here. I'm going to pull it through the arm, through the body, and join like that. Okay, if you want to add another one, or if you feel that it's not perfect, go back and just readjust. It's completely up to you how it looks, but you want to go through the loop on the body first and then get just a couple of bands on your hook and pull it through. Alright, so I think that's probably going to look okay. Then you're going to just do single crochets around until you get to the opposite ear, where we're going to put the next little arm on. We're just doing single crochets. So again, if we get to here, you want it to be even. So if we get to here, and then we have our second little arm, and if you remember, we hold this out and pinch it. We're going to use that tie-off band as our first band through. So get rid of that. Go through the loop. pull your first side through, grab your second side, pull it through and do your slip knot. Go through the next stitch, and we're finding 2 loops on one side and 2 loops on the other side. Taking another band, pull it through and secure through the next stitch, and you're finding 4 loops on the end here. And this is the trickiest one. The end, I have to say, is the trickiest one. There we go. And let's just do a single crochet, and we're going to start working as if our stitch marker is in the middle of the back. I know it's not, it's under one of these arms, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to make an executive decision and say that we start each round from the center of his back from now on. And I'm just going to pop that there. Okay, now at this stage you can stuff a bit of the head if you would like to. It does make it easier rather than trying to get it all through the feet. So let's get our stuffing down. I use the 100% polyfill, and you can use anything. You can use cotton wool balls, you can use tissues, some people have used toilet paper, stuffing from cushions or pillows, old yarn scraps, pieces of material, chopped up t-shirts, or you can buy the 100% polyfill from your craft shop. It's not very expensive at all, and it lasts for ages, unless your name is Pam and you make 100 bazillion creations all looking perfect. Then you'd go through it pretty quick. Okay, so I've stuffed his little head, and you don't want to overstuff. If you overstuff, you'll see that the stuffing comes through the stitches and it looks a bit nasty. So we just want to stuff him a little bit. Let's see if I can draw this camera in. There we go. So you stuffed his head. You want it to be round, or as round as you can make it. Let's get rid of the stuffing again. Okay, so for his little body, we've done round 1. Okay, we're going to do, I think it is 7 rounds in total. So we've done 1, so we need 6 more rounds. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and we're going to do 6 rounds of single crochet only. All right, that's all I want you to do, 6 rounds of single crochet only. Make sure you get each of these little stitches that is under the arms here, and we'll do 6 rounds of crochet, single crochet, and then we will meet back up. So I finished my rounds. Now we're going to do something a little bit different. Okay, what we're going to do, I'm going to backtrack to the midpoint here at the back of his body. All right, so I want to be in this stitch here. So I'm going to just undo my stitch marker, and I want to just unpick to the midpoint. Okay, so this stitch here. Now this stitch that is my middle one, I'm going to do a slip stitch. So I'm going to go through and reclaim like this, and this is my slip stitch. I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2 and 3. Now you know I hate sewing on limbs. Loathe it, don't like it at all, which is why I try and make it as easy as possible. So what I'm going to do, turn my hook this way so that these are facing the right way. When we're normally doing it, we would normally sort of sit here and go through this bit. I want to turn this, and I'm going to pinch and take my hook out, and I'm going to put my hook through the opposite side on the front. I'm going to take 1 loop, okay, pull it through and reclaim, and oh bless you, my cat's sneezing. and do my little slip stitch. So I have this chain going through the middle here. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to work on this side first. I'm going to go through the next stitch, which is right here, and I'm going to do a single crochet, and then in the next stitch, now this is round 1, we're going to do 2 rounds. 2, we're just going to do single crochet, and just remember I started at the front here. Okay, single crochet, and this is my, if you see here, this is the stitch before my chain, like this. Now I have my chain here, I have this little stitch right here. I'm going to go through it, do a single crochet, and then in my chain I'm going to go through the 2 loops that are closest to my hook, this side. Alright, do a single crochet, and then the same for the next one. Here, go through this side, so we're leaving this other side for the other leg that we're going to build up. Single crochet, turn myself around a little bit. If I look here, where's my next stitch? It's this one here. So this is where I started, so this is going to be round 2. Okay, and again I'm going around, single crochet, go through this side, on this side, and back to the beginning. I'm going to go through and I'm going to put a stitch marker on this just to hold it in place. Alright, I'm just going to put my little stitch marker on there. Now let's look at the front here. This is where we started last time to go round. In order for us to be working in the right direction, we have to start from the back. Okay, so I'm going to go through my first stitch at the back that is not part of my chain across, and I'm going to do a single crochet, and again we will do 2 rounds. This is my first, make sure you do not miss a stitch. So that's my little leg. Now if I look here, I've got 1 here. I need to go through this. This is part of the slip stitch, and then I'm into the chain, and there's the 2 stitches here, the 2 loops that were from the other side of the stitch. So I'm going through 1 of those, and then the next one, and then this is the 3rd one, and we're at the back again, so we need to go round again. Alright, so let's see what we have here. This one, stretch these out so that they are in shape. I think I've added an extra stitch there actually. I'm going to go back. Yes, I did. So there's, I'm coming out from the chain. Here I added an extra stitch there. It should not be there. I went through the little V instead and counted that as a stitch. So that was silly. I just quickly fixed my error. There we go, around again. Here we nearly finished. Now this time we finish at the back, not at the front, so I'm at the front at the minute, so let's work our way around to the back. Oh, come here, I just put hand cream on, which is a bit silly. Alright, so I'm at the back here. I'm going to go through one more here. And I'm going to find another stitch marker. Now, if you don't have stitch markers, C-clips work just as well. So, and I'm going to use one that locks because I'm going to be pushing stuffing in. There we go. Let's lock that into place. So these are his little legs. Okay. Like that. And if you were doing a different kind of design, obviously you could make them much longer, but I'm just doing them like little stumpy legs. We need to stuff his body down to his little feet. Again, don't use too much, and you've only got a little space to stuff it through. You do want him to have a round little belly though. And you do want it to come to the edge of his little feet here as well. So you might need a tiny bit more in this side, just so that we can get his feet filled. I think that's maybe a teensy wince more this side of his foot. There we go. I'm going to leave him like that, and we're going to do his feet. Okay, so I have finished off one leg and I'm going to do the other leg with you. You are obviously going to do both of them. Now we are going to put our hook back in. We're going to do one more round. Okay, so we did 2 rounds, we're going to do 3. So poke your hook in. We're doing one more round. And I know it's tricky when you have the stuffing sort of sticking out, but can't really be helped, otherwise he's not going to have stuffed legs or body. So one more round, and then we're going to work in the front post. So we worked before in the back post. This time we're going to work in the front post. Let me get all the way around here. And now I'm back to my start. So for the front post, you're going to go through, through from the front and then into the next stitch from the back and pop this little post out here. Okay, take a band, pull it through and do a normal crochet. Again, through the next stitch, pop it back so you have this post here. Okay, the next one in and pop it back out. And this again changes the direction of our work. Try and keep the stuffing inside. And then when we have all of the front loops done, what we're going to do is go through your next stitch and the stitch next to it, and you're going through all the loops, so 2 for this stitch and 2 for this stitch, and we're going to decrease so that we can close up our little foot here. And it can get fiddly, and then the next stitch and the stitch next to it, make sure you're only getting the stitches and not additional bits. And the next stitch and the one next to it. And you might need to pull the bands gently, try not to pull them out of shape. One more through this one and this one. I find if I go through and then I twist my hook the other way, it's quite a good way of doing my decreases. And then I'm going to go through a last stitch here and do a tie off, nice and tight, and go through either front or back, spread it out so that it's evenly spaced, the bottom, and go through the back, grab the end of your tie-off band, pull it through, try not to pull it through too far, you don't want stuffing to come out the back, but once you sort of stretch these out, they're actually quite good because you can stand your little figure up on them, and he stands up quite well, says me. His ears are flopping all over the place. Come on you, don't make a liar out of me. The other one stands up perfectly. Ah! They're both making liars out of me. Not that you need them to stand up anyway, but there you go. There is your little Deadmouse. I hope you enjoy making him. I thought they were really, really fun. And yeah, have a good one. Bye.